this RICO that you used against Mafia is now being used against you.
Yeah, right. I started it, and now they're using it against me for all I can figure out is advocating for my client, but saying things they believe to be false. So if I say that there appeared to be fraudulent absentee ballots because my witnesses say that they had never been folded and they look pristine, they will say that I am perpetrating a claim of election fraud. But that's what I was told.
Well, they're doing this under Rule 11, right? You, as an officer of the court, you can't make a filing. You can't sign something.
I can't make a filing that says no one has found me violated Rule 11. No one has found that.
But they've disbarred you because they say you're making claims that aren't warranted by existing law or evidence.
That's an issue on appeal. No one at the trial, the judge, my adversaries, at the conclusion of the trial, no one found I did anything ethical. No one, I've not been held guilty of violating.
Well, they didn't disbar you for being ethical.
They disbarred me on a separate proceeding brought by a political operative who had nothing to do with the trial, claiming I did all these things, and they refused to allow me to let in most of my evidence. For example, the judge refused to consider the fact that I have 12 hours of tape from Atlanta, 4 different perspectives of what went on in that hall in which I say thousands of votes were stolen. Lo and behold, when we get ready to go to trial, I realized that they had given me tapes with 3 hours missing. Not only are they giving me tapes with 3 hours missing, they had re-engineered them so the tapes looked like they were continuous. I proved that. I had the witnesses ready to prove it. And the judge, who was a product of the crooked Democratic political machine, refused to allow that tape in evidence. That tape would have conclusively proven that the very, very famous Secretary of State in Georgia, Ratzenberg, had produced an altered tape and that the prosecutor had offered it. It gets worse than that. The hours that were altered were the hours in which the alleged misconduct took place. So they're gone, bye-bye. The reason is the pictures would have demonstrated the multiple counting of ballots, the fact that people were thrown out so they couldn't see what happened, the fact that Biden got 200,000 votes at one period of time and Trump got about 80, which is impossible. The fact that the ballots were like this. That cannot be an absentee ballot. An absentee ballot, to be valid, has to be folded, cannot be signed, has to be in an envelope that is signed, in another envelope that's signed. Reason for that is you shouldn't be able to connect the final vote with a person because your vote is anonymous. All of those envelopes that you're talking about, you know how many are missing? From a state that should have been really careful if it were so interested in being as honest as Kemp and Ratzenberger say, 375,000 are missing. Just about the number that we estimated was the number that was fraudulent. So what the Bar Association did was, they haven't found a single lawyer involved in a single case with me that said I did a single unethical thing. All the allegations come from outside Democratic advocates, many of whom are paid for huge amounts of money. The women who obtained the $145,000 judgment against me have paid about $4 or $5 million in
$145 million.
$145 million judgment, which is a ridiculous judgment. There's no way they had $145 million worth of damages. It's completely absurd. The lawyer representing them is Hunter Biden's classmate.
How did they get the judgment?
They got the judgment by going before a judge named Beryl Howell. They picked the judge. Beryl Howell is the most bloodthirsty judge in the District of Columbia.
Did you make admissions against interest in that case?
I did not. She concluded that my failure to discovery showed that I was guilty, which is absurd. The reason I couldn't make discovery is the FBI had seized most of my material, and she would not allow that as an excuse. She should never have gotten the case. The case took place in Georgia, not Washington.
Are you going to
because it was fixed.
Are you going to represent yourself?
No, I'm being represented by Ken Caruso, who was my junior partner, my assistant U.S. attorney, who I trained, and is better than me.
He's better than you.
Well, I trained him.
Yeah. Well, you've had some pretty wild interviews, would you agree? Where you certainly speak out in an unfiltered sort of way.
I think it's called telling the truth.
You don't filter yourself sometimes.
Well,
I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you don't.
Just give me an example I can tell you.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of those.
She said, you did a wonderful job on September 11. And therefore, I'm making you an honorary knight, commander of the Royal something or other. I turned down a knighthood because if you took a knighthood, you had to lose your citizenship. I know Prince Andrew is very questionable now. I never went out with him. Ever. Never had a drink with him. Never was with a woman or a young girl with him. Ever.
People said you were mocking the Queen with an English accent.
Oh, gee. I'm sorry, Queen. I like the Queen. Unfortunately, I'm a frustrated actor. And I do imitations, like I imitate some of the dictatorial Democratic governors, you know, things like, well, you better not have you better have your mask on tonight. If you don't, you have your COVID card? Let me see your COVID card. You no move without your COVID card. You know, like the red Chinese loving governor of Minnesota who's been in China 30 times. I can't do a Chinese accent as well, but for him, I should do one. He's been in China more than Minnesota.
Well,
and he thinks it's nice. He thinks China's nice. He also says things like, one man's communism is another man's neighborliness. Except neighborliness never killed 200 million people. Socialism, I think is what he said, killed over 200 million people. Now, you can be a naive and think socialism is just another economic system, blah, blah, blah. But if you've been to China 30 times and you ain't figured out the difference between socialism and humane, decent human policy, there's something really wrong with you. Deeply wrong with you. And don't put somebody like that within 1,000 miles of having control over you, your lives, or your children's, because they're going to belong to the Chinese when they're finished.
All right, well, let's take a look at this one, let you explain what's going on here. I'll just let you put this in context.
There's nothing wrong with taking information from Russians.
There's nothing wrong with taking
information.
information.
Depends on where it came from.
The reason to keep all these things together is precisely to avoid what the Democrats did in this election, which is to misuse the absentee ballot process and the mail-in ballot process in order to cheat. How's that guy a general? Jesus. The other day, he said that the Bagram Air Force Base is not strategically important. I wanted to grab his, what do you have, 5 stars, 10 stars, 12 stars? He has so many stars that are coming up into his ears. I wanted to grab his stars, shove it down his throat and say, it's 400 miles from China.
Well, those are all very different. Let me explain them. There isn't a single thing I've done that I can't explain. Most of what we're living through, which I think a lot of people have a hard time rejecting, is this is not accidental destruction of the United States or accidental destruction of our moral basis or an accidental destruction of our belief in God or an accidental destruction of our belief in the national anthem or an accidental destruction of our love of the flag so we can burn it or an accidental destruction of we can walk out on our unit before it goes into battle or an accidental destruction of saying things like, well, socialism is really nice. And I've been there, I know. This is coming from 175 years ago from a man named Karl Marx. I am a scholar on Karl Marx. Graduated from college with a minor degree in philosophy. Marx was the minor degree. I was there for the tail end of the Cold War. I developed Pfizer. I did the first 50 Pfizer wires. None of them contain a lie, like the one with Jim Comey. I know the danger of communism. I've known it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I knew even when Reagan beat Russia, and I was so close to Reagan, I would consider him a second father. And his mother, his wife, I adored. I got her a letter from Bibi Netanyahu saying, if it wasn't for your husband, we wouldn't have had Iron Dome. And if it wasn't for Iron Dome, 100,000 Israelis or more would die. Who was against Iron Dome? The demented one in the White House and the silly woman that's running for president. They were both against it. They were against everything that could help the United States. Quote, cabinet officer Gates, Democrat, served with him. Joe Biden's been wrong about every matter of foreign policy in his career. He's giving you a signal. He doesn't have the guts, doesn't have to say, hey, come on, the Red Chinese own him. Unfortunately, the Red Chinese own more people around here than you think. And your country's being sold out for you. Do you think that when Joe Biden gave up the Bagram Air Base, 400 miles from China, during the time he was selling us out in Afghanistan, do you think it occurred to him that his family, 6 years leading up to that, had gotten $61 million from China? That's not a guess. I have the documents in my room showing it to you. Now, they say, oh, the money didn't go to him, except there's a text hidden even by the conservative media very often that says, from Hunter Biden to his daughter, that he's very upset that for 35 years, I have had to give half of my income to my father. You're telling me there's no evidence that he got money? What is evidence? Evidence is testimony. That's evidence. You can't walk away from trial by just saying it's not evidence unless you are a protected Democrat in what has become a system of justice that would fit Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, but not our great country.